Wake Forest is a team that a lot of people really don't think are going to do well this season. I've seen predictions that have them around 3 or 4 wins. And while I don't think Wake Forest is going to be a 7 or 8 win team, they could definitely beat those 3 or 4 win expectations, especially with the schedule they've got. It's really not too bad. There's a decent amount of winnable games on there for Wake Forest. The first 2 games aren't that terrible. North Carolina A&T should be an easy win to start the year. And then Virginia at home is also a pretty winnable game in the ACC. Virginia is going to be one of the lower rated teams in the conference. They're not that great. So the home field advantage should help Wake Forest in this one. It'll be pretty close, but it's definitely a game that the Demon Deacons can win. The home game against Ole Miss, though, is going to be significantly tougher. This is an excellent Ole Miss team. They're going to have a great offense again, despite losing Quinshon Judkins to Ohio State. This is going to be a super, super tough team for Wake Forest to beat. Don't really expect this one to be close at all. Out of the bye week, another one of those winnable games, though, with Louisiana. 4 straight home games to start the year for Wake. 3 of those 4 could be wins, which would be really great for them trying to make a bowl game. These next 2, though, NC State and Clemson, very, very difficult games. Both of these teams are much more talented than Wake, so they're going to be super tough to even keep close for a half. Most likely, both of those are going to end up being losses. But the next 2 are also winnable games. A road trip to UConn, very, very winnable matchup there, and a road trip to Stanford, even though it's a really long road trip. This Stanford team is also going to struggle this year, especially because they're going to have a lot of long road trips to make. They've got this game at home. Talent-wise, they're pretty comparable, so that one will be close. The home field advantage will definitely play a bit of a factor. But regardless, this is a winnable game for Wake Forest. Out of the bye week, it's a lot tougher. Cal at home is going to be a tough game. This is a solid Cal team. Another team that I think people might be underrating a bit. So I do expect this one to be close, but I wouldn't be shocked if Cal won that game by a decent amount. Road trips to North Carolina and Miami are also super, super tough. Can't really see Wake winning either of those, but the home game against Duke to end the season is another one of those very winnable games. So if you're counting them, that is 6 games that Wake Forest could win. They'd have to avoid any upsets, which is super tough to do. Um, but a bowl game isn't completely impossible, which seems kind of crazy given that there's some people out there predicting Wake to finish with 3 wins, 4 wins. The home games only got 7 home games, which is pretty regular for a Power 4 school. 5 away games. They have 4 opponents ranked in our rank and file top 25, and that gives Wake Forest a schedule difficulty of 6.5 out of 10. So taking a look at the official prediction, starting out the season, they've got 2 wins there with North Carolina A&T and Virginia picking up their first ACC win of the year. That Ole Miss game, I just cannot see Wake Forest winning, so they'll drop that. But out of the bye week, a win against Louisiana will move the Demon Deacons to 3-1. NC State and Clemson, I already said this earlier, are super, super tough games. Those will end up being losses. But that road trip to UConn is a very winnable game. They'll come back with one there, and 4-3 is not terrible heading into that road trip to Stanford. That's the one where I think it's definitely a winnable game, like I said. But Wake Forest, we do have losing that one, as well as the game to Cal, which really hurts their chances of making that bowl game. North Carolina and Miami are also both going to be losses, so that Duke game at the end of the year, even though it's a win, isn't quite enough to push Wake over the threshold. They're going to finish at 5-7. The projected record's a little bit closer, though, in between that 5-6 win mark at 5.4 wins. And there's definitely some games on here that they could win. It's really just Stanford and Cal They got to pull off one of those two and not get upset by somebody like Virginia or Duke. So it's possible that this Wake team can make a bowl game. I just don't quite think that they're going to get there. In the same boat as FPI, they've got them just over 5 wins, but still short of that 6 game threshold for the postseason. Only a 0.8% chance to make the playoffs, which at this point doesn't really feel like this is a number worth mentioning. Wake Forest is not going to be making the college football playoff. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in our next video.